Welcome everyone to the Hoops Deep Dive show. Day 2 free agency breakdown. It's been a massive day. More for trades, to be honest, rather than free agency move. We've had 3 pretty big trades, one especially big, which we already see up on screen. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So the Minnesota Timberwolves acquire Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz in exchange for Patrick Beverley, Jared Vanderbilt, Leonardo Balmero, Malik Beasley, Walker Kessler, and 4 first-round picks. It is a massive, massive price for Rudy Gobert. Shout out to the Utah Jazz. I didn't think there was this type of market for Rudy Gobert. I can't believe they've got this price for him. I mean, even if you look at the players they've added that can help the team now. Patrick Beverley, they desperately needed some perimeter defense. Jared Vanderbilt, I really, really like. Malik Beasley, he's pretty similar to Jordan Clarkson, so one of them will probably have to get traded. But Walker Kessler, they've basically got 5 first-round picks because Walker Kessler was drafted like a week ago. So it's a massive, massive price for Rudy Gobert. So great trade for Utah Jazz. For Minnesota, I've been going back and forward on it all day. I've been thinking about it all day, and I can't decide whether I like it or not. On one hand, I look at Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley in Cleveland, and I think, could it be similar to that? They played Larry Markkinen even at the 3, and they had a really successful season. But I think the difference is that neither Cat or Rudy Gobert have great lateral quickness, where Jarrett Allen and especially Evan Mobley, they're really good laterally, they have really light feet, they move really quick, where these two are more slower centers. Cat, it doesn't get talked about enough, but he has really, really poor lateral quickness. So I could see it not working from that sense, 2 poor laterally big men on the floor at the same time. I could see it not working, similar to Al Horford and Joel Embiid. They didn't work very well, and everyone thought Al Horford was washed, but I think, the fit just was not good at all. But at the same time, I think they both complement each other's weaknesses perfectly. You think offensively, what would you want next to Rudy Gobert? Player like Cat, who's possibly the best 3-point shooting big man we've ever had. And, you think defensively, what does Cat need? Someone that can protect the rim. And Rudy Gobert is an amazing defensive player. He's been carrying this Utah defense for years, So I haven't fully decided on it yet. I think I'll wait till my Minnesota Timberwolves preseason review video to have my thoughts on it. But for now, great haul for the Utah Jazz. The second trade, the Boston Celtics, the team that just made it to the finals, acquired Malcom Brogdon in return for Daniel Tice, Aaron Nesmith, Nick Stauskas, Juwan Morgan, Malik Fitz, and a 2023 first-round pick. I think Malcom Brogdon became a little overrated in the NBA community. A lot of mock trades had him going for a lot more than this, but I think he's one of those players similar to Jeremy Grant where the NBA doesn't value him as much as people outside the NBA. So I think it's a good get for Boston still. I don't think he'll start. I think he'll come off the bench. I think he'll, it'll be interesting. They've got him and Derek White coming off the bench now, but he really is one of the better shooters in the NBA. He's a 50-40-90 guy. He played big minutes in Rick Carlisle's system, which is probably why he kept getting injured, but I think he can be really, really good for Boston. His playmaking is pretty good. If he can help limit turnovers, it'd be a big plus for Boston. And I do think it's a really, really good get. For the Pacers, you just want to clear up the space in the front court. You want to play Tyrese Halliburton, 35 plus minutes a night. Got Buddy Hield still there. I don't hate it, to be honest. Between Buddy Hield, Tyrese Halliburton, we mentioned those two, Chris Duarte. They probably just needed to get off one of them. And to be honest, getting a first-round pick, it's not great value. It's not great value, but it was probably all they had on the table. And I'd prefer them do something than just run it back with Malcom Brogdon next year. So overall, I think Boston won the trade pretty clearly, but, it's not as bad as some people will make it out to be. And our last trade of the day, a pretty interesting one. Kevin Huerter goes to Sacramento in exchange for a 2024 first-round pick, lottery protected, Mo Harkless, and Justin Holiday. So we'll start from the Sacramento side. They're doing a lot. They've added Malik Monk. Now they've added Kevin Huerter, 2 shooting guards. I think Huerter gets the start, and I think they'll use Malik Monk in that 6-man Lou Williams type role, which I like. I don't mind it. I think Kevin Herter can be a really, really good NBA player. He's shown flashes. The shooting is obviously there. I probably wouldn't. I'm not too sure. Could you play him alongside Davion Mitchell and De'Aaron Fox? I probably wouldn't want to be honest. And they might have one too many backcourt members. But he is a really good shooter, and he offers them something a little bit different to the other three in that he's a bit bigger. He's 6'5", and if the defense can develop, I think he can be a really, really good shooting guard in this league. For the Atlanta Hawks, I think it's pretty simple. They didn't have room for him in the rotation, behind DeAndre Hunter, DeJounte Murray, Bogdan Bogdanovic. There wasn't really a big role that Kevin Herter could have on this team, and I think they're better off giving the minutes to a young guy like AJ Griffin, who I think was the steal of the draft. They're better off giving him the minutes, trying to develop him, than give them to Kevin Herter, in my opinion. And, I think it's a really win-win trade. I mean, for Sack, if it doesn't turn out, they're stuck with a pretty average contract. I think he's earning $16 million at the end of this 4-year contract. So, I don't hate it either way, but if I had to pick a winner, it's probably Sack. So let's finally get back onto the free agency news of day 2. So it was a bit of a slower day, but there was still some pretty big news. So first up, Zach LaVine, 5 years, $215 million, back to the Chicago Bulls. I love it. He's worth it, I couldn't believe that reports were coming out that they didn't want to give Zach LaVine the max, He played through an injury last year. He clearly wasn't right. He was still really good, but he is a great player. Offensively, he is one of the best in the league. If he can improve his defense, he can be a top 3 shooting guard in the league, that's for sure. I love it for the Bulls. I had to bring him back. DeMar, I know everyone loves the season he just had, and he was really good, but he's 32. Zach LaVine's your guy. Make him the man, and I love it. That's all I have to say. Don't love this one. 4 years, $70 million, Jusuf Nurkic. Don't love him as a center. His defense is poor. He could be really good if, he had a bit more opportunity offense, but I don't love it for the Blazers. I'd rather just a rim-running center who plays defense. $70 million as well. It's a big pay. So don't love that one. Mitchell Robinson, 4 years, $60 million to the Knicks. Don't love it. $15 million a year for Mitchell Robinson. Isaiah Hartenstein, they're paying $8 million a year. He's probably better than Mitchell Robinson. So don't love this contract from the Knicks. But a fun fact, this was their first draft pick since 1993 that they have re-signed on a rookie extension. Unbelievable. That is one of the weirdest stats I've ever heard. And then Kevon Looney, they were always only going to be able to keep one of him, Gary Payton or Otto Porter. They've gone with Kevon Looney. I don't hate it. Personally, I thought he was the best out of the 3. And it's a really good value contract. I mean, you look at what Mitchell Robinson signed for. Who would you prefer? Kevon Looney, Mitchell Robinson, You look at what Jusuf Nurkic signed for. Who would you prefer? On a championship team, I'd probably take Looney over both those two at this value. So, great signing by Golden State, and they proved just to be one of the better run teams in the NBA. Next up, we have the man Golden State unfortunately had to let go, Gary Payton. Great contract from here, 3 years, $28 million. He's a guy who's been in and out of the league. He's been on 5 different G League teams, so to get $9 million a year, shout out to you, Gary Payton. I mean, the hard work pays off. For Portland, he's good. He gives them something different in the backcourt, Dame, Anthony Simons, Josh Hart. They're all offensive players, Josh Hart a little bit more in defense, but Dame and Anthony Simons especially, they're not great on the defensive end. So to bring Gary Payton in, who realistically, if he plays over 25 minutes a night, he will be all defensive. I think it's a great pickup. Yeah, and Portland has had a pretty good offseason. Ricky Rubio, he was outstanding before his injury last year. Love this by the Cavs. Bring him back, They tried to replace him a little bit last year with Caris LeVert, but he's not that type of player. They need the playmaking with their 3 big setup. Great bring back. He's a really great player. I thought the Lakers might be able to try get him at the mid-level, but clearly the value was there for him. Bruce Brown, 2 years, $13 million. For Brooklyn, they paid 2 years, $14 million for Patty Mills. I think they made a massive mistake keeping Patty Mills over Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown is a really, really solid young player. He's a bit like Gary Payton. He's a bit weird that for his size, he plays a lot bigger than he is. But I can't believe they've brought back Patty Mills, especially now that they're blowing the team up, and not Bruce Brown. So terrible on a Brooklyn side. For Denver, really, really like it. They're really building a deep roster. And I think next year you bring back Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray. They're going to be right up there at the top of the West. Great signing for Denver. For the Warriors, they try to replace Otto Porter Jr. with Dante DiVincenzo. He hasn't proven it yet in the NBA, but I think he can still be a really, really good player. And in a system like Golden State, they just get the best out of everyone. Like, you look at Gary Payton, Otto Porter in this past season, they're players that struggled, to be honest, in their previous stops. So I think Dante could be a really, really good rotation player next year. And on a Sacramento side, they are the worst organization in the NBA. I mean, they trade for him. Everyone sees it as a great trade. They don't start him so that they can lowball him on the qualifying offer. And then they lose him for nothing. I feel really, really bad for Sac fans. You guys deserve a lot better. And this is just another screw-up. Of a long history of them. And then lastly, we have 2 Chicago Bulls signings. I'll go over Derek Jones Jr. first. 2 years, $6.6 million. He's a player I really like. Offensively, he is a 0. He can catch lobs, and that's about it. Which is really disappointing because he is elite on the defensive end. He is awesome on the defensive end. I still think he should get more minutes, even though he is so bad offensively. When they played him at the backup center last year, I liked it. But now they've brought in this guy, Andre Drummond, 2 years, $6.6 million. He is a terrible NBA player. I'm sorry to say it, Bulls fans. As a Lakers fan, I watched him a year and a half ago. Watched him in Philadelphia last year where we had a little resurgence, but again in Brooklyn, he's an empty stats guy. You know, he can put up stats in big minutes, but he's a terrible rim finisher. You know, the reason he averages such big rebound numbers is because he'll throw up a shot around the rim, it'll miss, he'll get it back, throw it up again, miss around the rim again, get it back, and then finish, you know. He is not a good center. He can't finish around the rim. Defensively, he's terrible. You know, he can't move on the perimeter. He can protect the rim sometimes, but no, not really. You guys think he's going to solve the Bulls' rim issues? No. He's not good. And, you know, you look at the Andre Drummond curse, the last 2 franchises. The peace sign on Brooklyn this year, and then they get swept, and then the Lakers when he was doing that little fadeaway on the bench. So, not a great signing. He'll get hyped up, but don't like it for the Bulls. Then we have 2 that are not confirmed yet. I've just seen reports of them as we're recording. Danilo Gallinari has been bought out by the Spurs. He's going to Boston. The terms aren't yet confirmed. I think it'll be the mid-level exception. I don't mind it for Boston. He looked old last year, in my opinion. He looked old, but he can shoot the ball. But he did look old. I'd think they could get a better wing at the mid-level. If it's on the minimum, I don't mind it. But at the mid-level, I'd think they'd want to go a bit younger. And then Otto Porter Jr., not yet confirmed, but it looks like he's heading to Toronto, which they just continue to have a super deep team every year. 2 years, I think it'll be the mid-level, but again, it's not yet confirmed. A loss for Golden State, and for Toronto, they now have a lot of frontcourt members. Pascal, OG can play there, Thad Young, Chris Boucher, Kem Birch. So maybe there's a trade. You know, Scotty Barnes. Are they in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes? I don't know, but they look to have a very stacked front court at the minute. And lastly, we'll go over the minimum contracts, which every year you'll hear people say, what a steal. But they're never good value, really. Mike Muscala back to OKC. It's fine. He shouldn't be in the rotation. I doubt he will be unless there's injuries to Chet and Robinson Earl. But, you know, again, it's a minimum contract, so you can't hate on it. Aaron Holiday, he's actually someone I thought should have got a lot more minutes for Phoenix in that Mavs series. He was really good when he played last year. I'm disappointed the Lakers didn't go after him because he can be a solid player in 10 to 15 minute role. For the Hawks, it's a not bad get, but in that backcourt, as I mentioned earlier in the Kevin Huerter part, he's not going to get any minutes. Theo Penson back to Dallas, it's a bit of a whatever move. I mean, good on him, but his only contribution this season was dressing in Golden State Warriors on the bench. So, yeah, Raul Neto back to the Cavs as a 4th string guard or 3rd string guard maybe. Shouldn't see any minutes, although Ricky Rubio, he is a little bit older, so maybe he fills in a bit for him when he misses games, but again, bit of a nothing move. And then Luke Cornett didn't get any minutes in the playoffs. 2-year minimum deal, it's being reported. It's interesting. I'm not sure why you wouldn't give him 1 year, but I mean, again, it's a minimum deal. It's not going to change the NBA or anything. And that's day 2 wrapped up, guys. Thanks for joining me again. We'll be back tomorrow for day 3, as you know. There's still a lot of free agents available. DeAndre Ayton, Miles Bridges, James Harden. A lot still to be confirmed. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you again tomorrow.